Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Sworn. So for those not across it, I do overviews on this channel. It's where I take a look at the first 2 hours of a game. That's the Steam refund window. Steam says you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep a game or not in that time, and broadly speaking, as a rule, I would agree and say that 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a short, punchy video, broad strokes info. Keep it around 10 minutes and you can make up your mind on your own. So I'm probably going to have a controversial take on this, or at least it's definitely my own take, and I may well stand apart. This game's getting a lot of good reviews by the look of it, but to be honest, it makes me see gaming and the production and commissioning and gamification of the actual industry through a much more cynical lens. If at first blush you look at this and go, this looks like a rip-off of Hades, then you would be 100% correct. This game is 95% Hades. However, you know, the negative connotation of a rip-off is usually something done poorly, right? So, like, mechanically, you know, the art, aesthetic, everything works really well, but it's just incredibly brazen. It's not homage. They have copy-pasted so much stuff, and I'm not saying assets, but the inspiration, the structure, even the sort of gods that you talk to, like so much of the, well, I can't even use words like DNA because it's not the same team doing it, but so much of the design direction is just lifted from Hades. Now, here's the thing. It's a buyer's market. Consumers will win out the day, vote with their wallet. And if this is actually what people want, then I can't really find fault with that. But again, this feels like a game that was, I mean, it's published by Team 17. They're probably one of the biggest indie publishers in the space, and I look at this and this seems less like a small team coming up with something interesting and indie and them funding it. It almost feels like it's been commissioned. This is speculative, who knows, but the business relationship clearly behind this is let's throw a bunch of money at something that is really very much a Hades clone, a good one I suppose, and it just makes me a bit sad to see this sort of AAA blue chip trickle down mentality getting into the indie space. I think maybe the biggest pitch is that this is co-op Hades, so if that's something you really want and you want to play this with your mates, go for it. I can't particularly comment on that. What little differences there are, I don't particularly like. Like, it's much thinner on story presentation, but who knows, it's early access. They may well, you know, fill that out. It's going for like Arthurian legend, so like so brazen. They're just going with gods and names of that mythology and swapping it out for Greek gods, except the thing is that pantheon is not nearly as rich, or at least the same amount of mainstream appeal. So when it's saying, hey, pick between this god's upgrade and that god's upgrade, and you know, it's as obviously the same as light attack, heavy attack, spell, your dash does this, get ultimates unlocked as well, but it's not like Zeus or Aphrodite or actually recognizable names. So yeah, look, I'm kind of down on this game, even though I suppose you could say objectively it's a good game. And I'm trying to be as reasoned with my words as well, because there are going to be people that really like this and really want this, but I can't help but feel, why wouldn't you just boot up Hades? I can drill down in the mechanics a little bit more. Like, it seems much less action-packed, and it leans quite hard into like a lock-on mechanic, which doesn't really work. And that's the thing, the few things, like, and it's only so tiny, the differences, but the few things that it does different from Hades, I feel like are missteps. So, you know, that sort of leaves an even dirtier taste in my mouth, that there's very little creative anything, and what there is kind of less than the inspiration. So it's much less action-paced. You've got this lock-on camera. The problem is that when enemies spawn in, you can't lock onto them while they're doing their canned spawn animation, and then they'll shoot an attack immediately out once they're done, and you'll find yourself kind of spamming the lock-on button, trying to get that to happen and sort of wait for them to stop fucking around in their animation before you can engage with them. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, it's not World of Warcraft or anything like this, but it's more about firing off abilities with cooldowns, and they have like a micro, not stutter, like the wordplay you gotta be careful with, because that's people think of performance, but it's like you get a micro stun lock when you animate these abilities, and it's enough. It might not even come across in the video, but it's enough with the fidelity with your hands on it to kind of be infuriating. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's going for a more deliberate, Souls-like sort of canned animation action combat, because for a moment there I thought maybe that's what it was doing. I looked at this and I thought Curse of the Dead Gods, or actually their follow-up Raven's Watch, which is doing its own thing. And honestly, that would be my recommendations. If you find yourself looking at this, I'd say play through Hades. Hades 2's in early access. I haven't even touched that because I don't necessarily have the appetite for it. But even Raven's Watch, a bit different, but if you want more slower, clunky, deliberate combat, that's the one. Like, I guess, they have really lent into gamifying the rogue-like elements. They've outsourced so many nothing upgrades into 1% upgrades here. And, there's different weapons, there's different classes. Through a certain lens, you could say that's something that Hades doesn't really have, but it kind of does as well. You have all the different weapons that you pick up. You kind of are your own single-player RPG multi-class in a way, because you're just that one main character. So they've taken a lot of the heart and soul out of this. They've gone to a mythology that's going to be less recognizable. There's no real narrative to speak of. It's not that it's not challenging, it's got its own pace, I guess you could say, with these micro stutter freeze-ups when you cast. So yes, I'm down on it. I have issues with it. It's objectively a fine game, but I think it flies too close to the sun, and it really does feel derivative, whether it's well made or not. But normally when you get into the brazen, shameless, heavy co-opting of something that existed before, usually that comes with someone that is relatively low skill, you know what I mean? And that's why, to sort of come full circle and put a bow on this and just put it in the memory hole, it really does feel like a game created by a committee. We want to make Hades, ... put it all on the whiteboard, copy just about everything of it, tweak the art style enough, throw, Team 17 publisher money at it, and have a license to print money. It really does. It feels corporately cynical in what is supposed to be the indie space. But, like I said, I exist to serve you guys, right? Let you know these games exist, put them on your radar. Maybe you're an absolute nut for Hades. It's the only game in your library. You love it to death. You want more. You've got a bunch of mates that really like it and you want to play co-op. In that scenario, I would suggest you check it out because you are very much the target audience. But going off the reviews, people are enjoying it. That's great. I'm glad to put it in front of you. Give it a go if you want to try it. But I would have thought more gamers would kind of see through this. And yeah, raises interesting questions. A game can be objectively good, but still be, so far closer to rip-off than homage that it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And that's been my personal, subjective experience with this game. Anyway, team, I suppose a bit spicy. I'm not trying to bash it. I hope I've conveyed my thoughts fair enough. And if you do find yourself as someone that enjoys this, that's great. Go for it. Fill your boots. I wish you nothing but happiness. But man, I really hope this isn't some 2025 new business strategy direction for Team 17. I guess we'll see if some of these indie publisher giants start churning out derivative yet well-made 95% of something else but repackaged type games. I guess we'll see. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being and I'll catch you guys on the next one.